Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and yes, I am turning my mom's living room into a studio. You guys are starting to see more of this. So, we've got a really interesting story for you guys today. Our guest, Alyssa, who I've asked to come on the show like over a year ago, and she said she was finally ready, and I'm so excited for today's show for her to share her story because Alyssa and we basically have sailed on the same boat. Hers turned out a lot differently than mine turned out, and I think you guys will find it very helpful and intriguing, and I think you guys will find yourself grabbing for the tissues as well. So we've got a couple different things that you're going to hear about today in the story. We're going to be talking about how leaning on the Lord has brought healing, and a lot of you listeners who are in long-term recovery, you guys know how important it is to believe in a higher power. And also, happiness is within reach despite seasons of great struggles. And again, that's something that we can all relate to, whether you're in long-term recovery or whether you're one on the other side of addiction, because the struggle on both sides, it's there. And also, we have to rely both sides on something greater than us, whatever that may be for you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest, Alyssa. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to get a little
finally getting
comfortable. So yeah, absolutely. And, gosh, you and I met, I think it was one of the mornings that you volunteered for the time when we feed the Cowboys, right? They come in
Yes,
for the
yes.
Western Stampede.
I think it's been 3 years now.
3 years ago. Yeah. And we just happened to get talking, and I think we talked the most the second year, right? It's when we started speaking a lot more, and we started opening up to one another, and it's crazy. It's crazy how that happens. I am a firm believer God puts certain people in our lives for a reason.
Yeah,
right? Some for a short time, some for longer. I think he knew you and I had something to share. And that second year, you and I we were both doing what we were asked to do, but we were really talking a lot during that time as well.
We got the pancakes made in between.
Right, the pancakes and the bacon and the eggs and all that other fun stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, I think you were in one of your hats or something, and I got asking about your podcast.
Yeah.
We got into that.
Yeah, and you started opening up what has happened in your life, and I just couldn't imagine that, and you shared a little bit more, and it's taken some time, right? You're still in healing.
Oh yeah,
because it's something that you don't get over very quickly. Yeah.
I feel like it's more becomes a part of you, and you grow around it, kind of a thing.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, because it does become a part of your life. Because our subconscious has a way of protecting us, right? It doesn't know what's real and what's fake. However, it does have a way of bringing stuff to surface very quickly. Because I'm sure, before we get into your short story, I'm sure you may drive somewhere, or you may go somewhere, or a song, or something may happen that brings that trigger back for you, right? To where it feels like it was just yesterday.
Definitely.
So tell us a little bit more about your journey with and how things started. I mean, are you originally from West Jordan?
Yes. Grew up in West Jordan, went to Copper Hills High School. I'm back living right over by there now.
Okay.
So kind of back where I started anyway, but grown since then. But so the real part of my story, I think, starts after high school. I was working over AA Callister's, the Western store.
Okay.
And started there after high school. I think maybe a couple of years into it, the man that became my husband started working there. So that's where we met.
At Callister's.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
So I worked in the clothing department. He was in the boots, and I used to laugh even, as we got to know each other better, they started pulling me to cover his shifts over in the boot department. So while he was going and taking, I think it was some kind of classes. So we got to know each other pretty quick, and it was funny because, you know, he was older than me, and I found out he had kids. And I remember coming to my mom and being like, you know, nothing's gonna happen there. We're just friends. I don't see this going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think we met in January, and by end of March we were hanging out. So we clicked pretty quickly, I guess. It worked well for whatever reason anyway. And
yeah.
so we went on, got engaged that October and married the next January.
Holy cow, that was quick.
So yeah.
Wow.
We kind of decided once we were engaged, you know, if we're going to get married, we might as well do it. Let's not drag this out. And so we did. But we've done, you know, things have gone really well during our dating period. He actually ended up working for my dad.
Okay.
My dad does tile work, and he was working for my dad and with my brothers by the time before we were engaged even.
Wow.
So we fit with the family really well at that point, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess that's where then the shock factor set in after about 2 weeks of marriage. I come home and he's really sick, and I just could not figure out what was going on. I'd never seen him, you know, like that growing up. A couple of days it went on, and I said, you know, we actually had moved to West Valley. We were living on the same street as his mom and his brother. And I did not want them to know he was sick. You know, my family could know, but not his. And I thought, this is really weird. You know, why is he doing this? And couldn't figure it out. And one night his mom walks over, and we're sitting in the entryway of the house, and she comes in, and she knew right away he'd been drinking. So not something I was at all prepared for. We had talked when we were dating, you know, he's like, my mom thinks you need to know my history. Yes, I've drank, I've smoked, I've tried those things. Well, that's all I knew.
Holy cow.
So his mom told me later, she said, I had the strongest feeling I needed to come over that day. And no doubt that was the Lord sending, you know,
yeah,
because I didn't know what I was dealing with. And, you know, no doubt he was drinking. And I find out, you know, this was really hard the first couple of days, especially. And I'm like so confused. I'm like, calling my mom. This is what I'm hearing is going on. I don't even know. Because he's, you know, they don't know what they're talking about. Don't listen to them. And he was like a different person when he was drinking.
yeah.
And so I come to realize pretty quickly the signs of what he would do when he was drinking. He came out of it, you know, a week or two later, but it was rough. I was back at my mom's because I didn't know how to deal with it or what was going on. And this kind of became our cycle. He would clear up. He was clear in time for Valentine's Day. And I thought, okay, we're gonna be okay. It's gonna work out. And we were for a while.
Yeah.
And then he would do it again. So throughout the time that we were married, I learned what those signs were of him drinking. And my mom actually had some experience. Her brother was an alcoholic, and she said, you know, these are the things that you need to do to watch out for this. You know, this is what you as the spouse, you need to be careful, to take care of yourself and set boundaries. So that kind of became our cycle for, you know, we'd go a few months really good. Every time he was so sorry. And this was not who, I have to throw it in there, this is not who he wanted to be.
Of course.
At
Yeah.
all. Like,
yeah.
And I'm not sure he even knew what he was like, you know, when he was drinking. And so I don't share that to make him look bad in any way.
Yeah.
That's not who he was.
Well, and just to elaborate on that, that's something that I've learned right through doing what I've been doing for the past 2.5 years. It's not the individual.
Yeah.
You know, it's the substance. Because we really know who the individual is. That's what causes us to fall in love with them in the first place.
Right.
Right. And then all of a sudden this nastiness comes in and just takes control of them and turns them into somebody we don't even know.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really hard as their loved one to watch that and their struggle with it. And he really would get clean, and he would go to everybody in the family, everyone who felt like he had wronged, he would apologize. He would work really hard to make things right. And he was very aware that that was not who he wanted to be. And it was crazy because he'd been clean for so long that I couldn't even figure out, I had no idea when we were dating, and it had been, a year. And, I think we talked about it once and he kind of said, I think I got married again and went back to this is how I did things before a little bit. From talking with his family later, I think he started when he was probably 14. Started with friends, first wife. There was drinking. He told me at their wedding reception that was just what they did.
Yeah.
So I think it just been so built into him that maybe he didn't know. Well, they become addicted.
Yeah.
So, we got into where he was. Well, we learned about all the resources because I thought if I'm going to help him and support him, I need to understand this. And we discovered there's a video. I want to say it's called Landscape of the Mind. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like a 10-minute. It's taken from a longer video, but just this 10-minute clip even helped explain to me and understand so much how alcohol affects their brain and their thinking and their body's need for it once they've developed that. So it was really helpful for me to be able to see that and to help understand what he was dealing with so that I could deal with it better.
Right. Yeah.
But, and then he'd do really well for a while. We looked up addiction recovery type meetings. Our church has some. I discovered quickly they're every night all across.
They're
everywhere.
Yeah, you can find them all over this valley.
Yes. So I went with him a few times to those, and there you get to hear other people's stories. And a little later into it, maybe a year or so, I discovered they now have those for the families. And I ended up going one at my church. They had a pamphlet even for the families of this is what, how to deal with these things and cope with these things.
Yeah.
And that helped me a lot to just realize I wasn't the only one struggling with this and facing these things with a family member because you love them and you want to help them and you can't do it for them.
You don't know how either, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that was helpful to me to be able to see those things. And I continued, usually when he was drinking, I would leave because I'm like, I can't be around that. He was mean. And it was hard. I remember, so I had a lot of family members that helped me out.
I can imagine.
My brother would sometimes come home with me. So I was like, I don't know what I'm walking into. We could tell he would kind of function for a day or two, and then he's non-functional totally. And as I learned more about that as well, they kind of said, if you had an addiction and you stop, but if you start again, it's like you never stopped. It just picks it back up. And so I think before he was more functional, and I got him at the point that the way it affected him, he wasn't functional anymore when he would drink. And so it was a little scary sometimes to not know what you were walking into or how things were going to be.
It's like walking in the door. I used to describe it as walking into a door and worried about where you step because there's landmines everywhere, right? And you don't know where they're at, because that's how it got for me. And for me, I kept it quiet. See, I didn't reach out to family like you did. I just kept it quiet because I didn't want anybody to know, and I didn't want anybody to judge her either, right? And also I didn't want anybody to judge me as well. And by keeping it locked in, I mean, it was sucking me down that same rabbit hole. And even though you were reaching out to family, did you find that same thing, that you were putting that ankle clasp on and you were starting to go down that same rabbit hole with him?
Yeah. I think they call it kind of being like a codependent. And you're trying to make everything right for them. You're trying to fix it. You're trying to be the go-between because you want things to stay good. And I remember doing that a lot. And again, because of my mom's experience, she would kind of come and say, hey, that's not what you want to do.
Right.
I'm like, what?
So you had a good coach.
I did.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
good.
she had gone through the AA meetings with her brother.
Okay.
So she was familiar with, the process and the 12-step program. And she said, you have to set these boundaries. And I remember one time coming in and saying, I had it, you know, I was like, we've been doing this and doing this. And I love you and I want it to get better and I want to help it. And I can't fix this for you. And finally being like, you know what? This is my house and I'm tired of leaving it. So it's your turn. And I said, you're going to clean up by tonight or you're going to find somewhere else to sleep. And I remember him calling me that night and saying, I did it. I dumped it. It's gone. I was like, but I'm not doing well. Will you please come be with me? I said, okay, you know, I'll come be with you for a little while.
Yeah.
Because they just, that withdrawal period is very hard on them. And I can't say I understand it necessarily because obviously I've tried to avoid that after seeing it.
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah.
and I remember, but setting that boundary helped him, even though it was hard.
Yeah. Well, and it helps, it does help us, right? I mean, we are protecting ourselves and really it's not being selfish because we have to protect ourselves because we cannot help the other individual. Well, we can't help them be sober.
No.
We can't help them make the right choice. They have to do that on their own. However, it does help them when they know they have someone that's there to love them and comfort them. And again, we don't understand being newbies in it.
Right.
We don't get, because they're such great manipulators.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when my wife was going through her withdrawals, she would be shaking and talking funny, and she's like, I need a bottle because if not, I'm gonna die. And I'm like, BS, bull crap, you know, and I'm like, you're just trying to, and finally I would break in and go get her a bottle. And then one day I'm talking to one of her therapists and I said, yeah, I fall into the trap. I go buy her a bottle because she says she's gonna die. And she goes, no, she's not lying to you. And I'm like, what? And she goes, alcohol is the only one out of all the drugs out there that if you quit cold turkey, you can go into convulsions and it can kill you. So now I'm sure you know, you're like, if I don't, he could die. If I do, he could die. What do I do? Right?
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And he was hospitalized a few times for it because when you hit that detoxing time, he wasn't okay, you know. But it was very hard. My mom took him once because she was like, you've been dealing with so much, you know, I'll do this. And my mom's amazing. My family is amazing.
Well, I met your mom and dad at the rodeo.
Yes.
Yeah, they seem to be very sweet people.
They are. So I've been really blessed to have that kind of support.
Good for you.
And, you know, but then you look back at those times now and you see all those little things and all the little helps you got along the way. And
Yeah.
you know, it's amazing that way.
Yeah. Well, and with your mom going through it with a brother,
Mm-hmm.
that was such another big blessing for you, right? Because she has seen it, and for her to give you what little tools she had, I'm sure it helped.
It did. And you know, the cool thing is that he's doing well now. He's doing really well.
Great.
Saw my uncle last week.
Really, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Really good.
So
Cool.
Success story there.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of them.
There are.
There are a lot. Yeah. So you found yourself going down that same rabbit hole. You set some boundaries, which was really good because it took me a long time. And seriously, it took me a long time to finally get some boundaries set. Did you, however, I don't know. I think even when I did set my boundaries, I was still falling down that rabbit.
Yeah.
And it's because, again, we care for them.
We care for them, and they're good at, in a way, manipulating so that you fall into that.
Yeah.
You feel like
Yeah.
you need to do those things for them, to protect them. Yeah, and I even had a few times, you know, they'll kind of even pick fights with you to push you away at times. And again, that's not how he normally was. It was like opposite. So I came to recognize very quickly, and I guess in a way I grew up very quickly because I was young, you know, and thrown into this. And next thing I know, I'm the one trying to manage and keep a house running and take care of him. And occasionally it was, oh, he's drinking again, gotta hide the car keys and clean out the house, you know, he's hiding it from me.
Oh, yeah. And they hide them in some.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, how did you even think of that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have this desperation to have it and they become very creative, I guess. you
Yes, they
could say.
do. Yeah.
And I remember, my one brother picking, I think it was my brother, or my dad took him to work. And asking my other brother, here's my house key, will you go search the place while we're both gone because I'm at work and. And it's sad that you have to do that because you love them and you want it to change. But yeah, we kind of continued through this cycle for, it was almost 2 years. And you want me to lead into the next part of my story?
Yeah, it's your story. Yeah, go wherever you want and I'll just spin off of that.
Things were rough. We ended up moving it was the end of the next summer. And, I thought we were doing better, and we talked about wanting to have kids. So things were good and then they weren't again. And we've moved and I found out I'm expecting. And I admit I was a little bit terrified because the situation changed again. And I thought, I love him and I want this to work. And I know how badly he wants this because he hasn't had a great relationship with his other kids. He had some other kids. And we've tried to involve them more and things are starting to get better. But I think they themselves have set this boundary of we want nothing to do with him because we know what he's doing. And that was his time of I'm going to reach out to my kids is usually when he's drinking. And that's, very hard on them. And I said, that's great. You want your kids in your life, just not when you're doing this.
Right.
And so, yeah, I find out I'm expecting, and I remember feeling really nervous about this. Like, I can't bring a child into this life that we're living right now. I'm not going to let them grow up like this. And so I find out the end of August, and I kind of told him, I said, you need to figure out if you're going to be able to work on yourself and make this better. Because, he'd gone to the meetings, I'd gone to the meetings. And then he'd get kind of laid back about it. And I think maybe we both did. That we both got, things are going good again and we're going to be okay. And I'd relax. And I think he probably did too. And then it would start over. And so, I kind of pushed, it's time for you to figure out if you can take care of yourself. So I can know if you're ready to take care of them. And a couple weeks later, they say that your addiction will kill you one way or another if you don't stop, right? Whether it's car accident, overdose, or suicide. And his kids ended up with suicide.
Oh, man.
And that was worst time of my life by far.
Expecting a child, losing your husband. I can't imagine what was going on in your head. Mixed emotions, I'm sure, were going everywhere.
Yeah, so that week, and it was so hard because he was working for my family.
Yeah.
And I remember, my brother saying, we're not letting him drive home today. He's been drinking. And I was like, okay, great. He dropped him off. I went to my parents. And the next day I go to work. And I text my brother and said, he's still drinking. Don't pick him up. It's not going to help you out. I'm on the job. And a little while later, I'm getting phone calls from my sister-in-law and the police. And, they didn't know at that point. She called me and she said, hey, he called one of his good friends and he thought he sounded really weird, really off. So he called me and she goes, and I didn't know what to do. So we called the police. And I said, yeah, there's only so much we can do right now. We've all gone through this so many times. And so I'm on the phone with the police and they want to know what they're walking into over there, what they should expect, and a couple hours go by and I'm still at work and I'm like, what's
Haven't
going
heard
on?
anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I finally call, I think she ended up being the maybe head detective or whatever over there. And said, hey, I haven't heard. Is he okay? And she goes, no, he's not. And I need you to come in. And so it's like I knew, but they hadn't told me yet,
Right. So you had that weird feeling.
Yeah. I knew something wasn't right. And luckily, I worked at a place that was really great. My boss was actually our landlord before that.
Oh.
Interesting enough.
Yeah.
But because of that, in a way, she understood. She saw what I was feeling then.
Yeah.
And she was really good with me that way. And so that was another blessing in my life at the time that she said, yeah, you go, she's like, do you need me to take you? Like, I will drive you. And I said, you know, my mom's gonna meet me, we're gonna go. So I walked into the police station and I knew, and I walked, there's my sister-in-law who'd made the phone call. And my bishop actually was there because he'd been involved that week. And, you know, my mom told me later, she goes, I didn't think of it at the time until later. She goes, the bishop, my bishop had called her and said, hey, I have the strongest feeling that he's gonna take his life and you need to be prepared. And my mom's like, you know, didn't think much of it. No.
Yeah.
And as we set up the timeline and look back on it, we think he was on the phone with that friend when he did it. Which in a way was a comfort that he wasn't
alone.
Totally. But I was like, you know, there's God right there. And I was like, the bishop called probably within minutes of that time.
Wow.
And it was just, I mean, you know, it was awful.
Of course.
But now I can look back and see these little things that people knew and helped and cared. But yeah, so I'm there pregnant and he died, and you probably dealt with some sort of suicide at some point in your life. I think everyone does, unfortunately.
I had a good friend that I grew up with here in West Jordan that we were really close. And yeah, when I got a phone call from his wife, she left me a message and I was like, no. She didn't say what happened on the message, just her tone of voice. I had a feeling.
Yeah. But there's so much guilt. I feel like that's the worst way for somebody to go, because you second guess everything you did. And I'm like, this is my fault, you know?
Yeah.
If I had done this or this or this differently, he would still be here. And I can look at it now and know that's not the case, but it was that way for a long time. And everybody did it. My brother, you know, if I had just picked him up for work that day, my dad, you know, my mom said, we were trying to help you. What if we had helped? You know, what if we'd done something differently? I think his own family went through that. They weren't as involved right up to that time, but I remember his sister texting me, and this is my fault. You know, I said this to him and I shouldn't have. And I think, you know, this is not your fault. But I think that they've watched him do it for so long that they were a lot more distant at that point.
You get calloused, right? I mean, it still hurts, and it's still feeding your emotions, your negative emotions. However, you do get calloused of it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you said that it was everyone, how it affects everyone, because it just wasn't you as being his wife. It went to your parents, to his parents, to your brothers, to his sister. Yeah. My gosh.
I mean, we all felt it, and it was awful. It still sometimes is. I mean, I do much better now. A lot of healing has come over time and strength, but in the moment, even for a long time after, you just wonder what you could have done different, how you could have changed that outcome. And that's where I don't want to say it's a good thing that he's gone in anything. But I was at this point that I'm pregnant and I can't raise this child like this. And I don't know how to change the situation. And then he died. And it was terrible. But at the same time, I'm like, was that the answer? Unfortunately.
Right.
And, you know, my daughter obviously has not had to grow up with that so far. And she gets to hear the fun stories of her dad and love him for who he was. And not have to see that other side of him. And my mom told me once, you know, that she prayed about it and she thought, why couldn't he be healed from this? He wanted to be healed so badly. And she said, kind of the answer came, people want to be healed from cancer too. And it doesn't always happen in this life.
Yeah. You know, with you saying that, Alyssa, sometimes I get emotional telling this. I had a guest on my show from Colorado. She is 30 years clean. And it's crazy. 30 years clean for her. And now she has a 30-year-old son who's still battling addiction. And she is like a lot of us who are on the other side, that every time the phone rings, you think something bad, right? And she said she was at church one day and she was talking to one of her friends. And she goes, I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my son and I just don't know what to do about it. And, you know, she's telling her friend, opening up, and her friend said, this is how I see it. She goes, there are those that are battling certain things in life that God knows it has such a grasp on them. Instead of allowing them to continue to suffer, he brings them back home, right? The ones that put down the shovel and we stop digging, they end up being God's angels who are now walking this earth, putting their hands out, helping other individuals get through the same thing they went through. And I like to tell that story a lot on my shows because it really resonates with me for a couple of reasons. When Jesus started walking around spreading the word, who did he pick to be his disciples? It was a prostitute, it was a tax collector, it was the imperfect ones, right? Now we're all imperfect.
Oh yeah.
There ain't a perfect one of us at all. However, he knew that they would understand. They ended up putting their hands out, guiding people because they knew the dark part of life, right? And I just found that so interesting because, again, it's not allowing to suffer anymore, and he knows it's going to hurt all of us, right? The ones who love him. However, you said it quite a few times here, actually quite a bit, that the blessings behind it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not all bad. It's bad, it hurts.
Right.
We've lost someone that we love dearly. However, there's so many other blessings behind this. One, your daughter, when I talked to your daughter at the rodeo, she talked about her dad like she's known her dad for, what is she, almost 7, I think?
Yep.
Almost the whole entire life. And I was just amazed. So that could have saved her from seeing the bad part. That also could have put her in that same situation as she got older, right?
Right. And yeah, it's amazing. She's a little miracle.
Yeah.
All the way around. Everything about her. And that's where the next part comes in a little bit on my story, is that when I'd been so nervous, God knew exactly what he was doing when I ended up pregnant at that time.
Yeah.
She got me through that. And it's amazing to me when I look at that because that gave me something to keep going for. And I mean, that's not, I'll have to explain all this next probably, but she's a twin. And we lost her sister during that same time. And as I continue to look at all the medical and the things that went behind that, I'm like, this girl is a total miracle.
Wow. Well, she's a little sweetheart. I tell
She-
you what, she captured my heart very quickly.
And
Yeah.
your rice, I believe.
Yeah, and the rice, right? It's a whole nother story, guys, but
Yeah.
it was awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, so I got it, crazy thing was my first doctor's appointment I had scheduled was the week that he died.
Oh man.
And I remember being like, I just can't do this. And my mom was like, you need to. And nothing went right that week, let's be honest. I mean, I go in there and I mean, it was really neat to see. I'm like, okay, there's a real baby there.
Right.
But they wanted to do blood work and everything. And I remember later, I was like, Mom, that really hurts. Like, I've never had it. They burst my vein, my whole arm.
Oh my
bruised
gosh.
For the funeral and the viewing. This is just a nightmare. And on top of that, it was struggles with his family. And it was trying to plan a funeral and incorporate their wants on what they wanted when I needed to make the decisions. And that was hard.
Yeah.
And we went through a rough time with his family a little bit. We're good now. I mean, didn't have anything to do with his kids, because we didn't really have a relationship anyway.
Right.
But so then, I get through all of that funeral and the hard stuff that week. And my sister was actually pregnant. She miscarried the day of the funeral, my husband's funeral. So, it was crazy because when I found out I was pregnant, she was already pregnant. Like, she's pregnant to help me. And then she miscarried that week. I just can't believe this. Like, why are we going through this? And then farther down the road, I go in November. He died in September. So 7 years this month. And I go in November for a gender reveal. And the ultrasound tech is, doing her thing. And she's like, your doctor didn't catch this? I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you're having twins.
Oh,
I'm like, you're kidding me, right? She's like, your doctor didn't catch this? I'm like, no. What do you mean? Like, and it was just crazy because, my sister had lost one, and we thought, we had 2 girls come into our families. We thought we would.
yeah.
She thought she'd done a girl, and so they're like, yeah, you have 2 twin girls. And they're like, you're sure you don't want me to get your mom? I'm like, no. This is a surprise,
Yeah,
so I told my whole family that night, and I said, we lost one baby and we're still getting 2. And we, shocked and excitement, of course. And automatically became a high risk pregnancy because of twins. They were like, hey, we're going to send you to a specialist. And so a week later, he tells me, things are looking pretty good, but you might have what they call twin to twin transfusion syndrome. So basically, it's kind of confusing. He had to draw me a little diagram with tree roots.
Okay.
But basically, their blood supply is shared between the 2 babies instead of back and forth to the mother like it's supposed to. And one of them gets too much blood and fluid, and their heart is overworked, and the other one isn't getting enough. So he tells me, there's a specialist in California to deal with this. He's like, I don't. And so he's like, we'll check it again. A couple weeks later, he's like, okay, yeah, I think this is what's going on. We're gonna send you to the guy in California. And all of a sudden I'm on December on a flight to California. And we get there and he looks at it and says, yeah, you're at the beginning stages of this. And usually he can go in and sever those little connections, like laser them.
Okay.
And it, helps both the babies.
Right.
And he says, yours is a special case. Can't do that. Their umbilical cords are too close together. And I couldn't risk catching them. So that would kill them. Okay, so they can't do that. So what they do, they say, you've got all this extra fluid. I was so uncomfortable. I went from like flat when I went into gender check to totally pregnant. And like, you've got all this extra fluid from, that extra stuff they're processing. So they go in and they drain 2 liters of fluid out off the one baby.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, yeah, I feel a little better.
Right.
Flight home's not gonna be so uncomfortable.
Holy cow.
So that's December, and a couple of weeks later, I'm full of fluid again. And doctor here says, well, I can do that. And he goes in and drains 2 more liters of fluid off. And they send me to what do they call it? It was basically a heart specialist but it was to check their hearts.
Okay.
And so they go in and ultrasound and check them all out and stuff. And they said, yeah, this baby's at higher risk. They're both doing okay. The baby that's heart is being worked more. And I had doctor's appointments every week. Again, my boss was very understanding, worked around my schedule. And I said, I'm gonna have appointments every Wednesday at this time. And she's like, okay. And so I would go in one of my appointments in January, and they're doing just measuring everything, checking everything. And the ultrasound tech stops and says, I need to get the doctor. And she walked out. And I said, something's wrong. My mom was with me, I think something's wrong. I've watched them do these so many times now.
Right.
And they haven't done this before. And the doctor comes in and he's discouraged too, because we can't find a heartbeat. On your other baby passed away.
Oh, man.
And I remember being like, how can this happen? Why would I be asked to go through this? We've been so excited for this. And, you know, I couldn't wrap my head around it at first. And one of my first stories was I told my mom, I said, don't tell my sister that she already lost her baby. Like, you know, like she's gonna have to know.
Right.
But crazy thing was, my sister was able to get pregnant again that winter. So again, we both ended up with one. We both lost one and both got one. So, but I remember at the time, like I was praying about it, and I was like, why? I already had to go through this either. Why do I have to do this too?
Right.
And I didn't feel like I was getting an answer almost. And I started having people talking to me that were coming up to me and they said, you know, I have the strongest feeling that one of those babies was supposed to be with you and one of them was supposed to be with him. And I had so many people that I said, you know, that's my answer. And I've been too numb to feel that, I guess.
Right.
And
Right.
so I had a lot of people that was like, okay, if that's what needed to be done.
That gave me goosebumps everywhere, because being a spiritual type person as I am, I can definitely, it didn't dawn on me until you said it. I can understand how that would be, right? Because he's probably feeling bad for what happened, needing some comfort, and why not bring a daughter to me, right? Because father and daughter's bonds are strong.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Holy cow.
So that helped me a lot. But I continued to have little things like that. I had a lady that called, my boss's sister was going through cancer. And I can't remember if this was around the time he died or before that, or somewhere in this time period. She called, and I remember her saying, you know, she was dealing with a lot. And I remember answering, and I said, oh, your sister's not in, but how are you doing? You know, and she said, you know, she said, I heard what you're going through. And she goes, sometimes you just take it a day at a time, an hour at a time, or a minute at a time, if that's what you can handle. And I was like, she's right. And I look back and I'm like, that phone call was for me. She didn't call for her sister that day. That was for me because I needed that. And I was like, that's true. So that's how I did those next months, you know, just what you can at a time. You don't have to take it all at once. You don't have to look at the next month or the next year. You know, you deal with what you can when you can.
How the heck did you even really do that, right? Because I would say for the majority of us, we are always projecting, okay, how am I going to do this, and what's going to happen when this happens? And you know, you start thinking so far ahead when you still don't even know what's going to happen. How do you keep yourself, or how did you keep yourself to that point? Because what I'm hearing from you, Alyssa, is everything that was going on in your life in such a short period. I know some people who would be angry at God.
Oh yeah.
Right? Why are you doing this to me? And my one good friend Axel told me, everything good is God. Mm-hmm. Even though we may not understand it, right? How the good that can come out of tragic type things. However, was it your faith? Was it your belief that kept you from going too far out of the realm and keeping yourself? I mean, even though you're struggling with pain and hurt and not understanding it, also what I'm hearing is you were seeing blessings out of that. I'm understanding everything that was happening.
Yeah.
You were seeing it. You were getting it. Your mind still had to be somewhat open to see that.
Yeah, and my faith helps a lot. And I feel like you said, I feel like when you go through something hard, you either cling to that or you get mad at God and you push it away. And I was someone that clung to it, and it helped me a lot, you know, and along with my family. But I remember clinging to those things, those hopes, those beliefs, I saw a post one somewhere that somebody had shared, that the farthest that you're ever from that person who died is the day that they died, and every day is a day closer to seeing them again. And I'm like, you don't feel like that in the moment,
Right.
but thinking that way helped me to be able to be like, okay, he's on the other side, and I'm gonna get closer to that.
Right.
But so that helped. I had a lot of people that were praying for me, I know, and I received a lot of people that were just, uplifting me. And I don't know, but I did always see it in the moment. But I saw it a lot better when you look back.
Yeah.
All the little things that added up, and I was like, oh, that wasn't an accident that this happened. It wasn't, like you said even before, you don't have people placed in your life on accident. You meet them at times that they're supposed to be there for you, or
Yeah. There's no coincidences.
Yeah.
That's it's just how I believe. There are no coincidences.
Yeah.
It happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went through all this stuff, and it was crazy, and it was hard. And I remember, crying one day at work and trying to focus and function. And I must have told my brother, and my brother became very close with my husband. And he shows up at my work and hands me like all these chocolates and goodies. And he's like, I thought, what would Jared do?
Right.
And I remember just losing it. My boss being like, this can go over, go up in the break room or something. But I had all those little things to push me and keep giving me hope and faith, and realizing that things were going to get better.
Yeah.
And I had people, even at the mortuary, these sweet people that were like, I know it's hard, but it's going to get better. And, they were calling me on the phone as I'm trying to make arrangements. And, here I am, lost a baby, and I'm doing all of this again. And so I ended up, I think it was I found out in January, and come February, they told me, you're still going to deliver this baby. And I was pregnant with twins. I was supposed to go early. And they're like, okay, well, now that you only have one, we want you to go full term. I remember being so discouraged, like, this pregnancy has been miserable. I'm huge, I'm uncomfortable. And
yeah,
just being like, so discouraged. And they really, so here's the other amazing part that goes with that.
Okay.
So they were worried that after the one baby that passed away, that the other one could have brain damage. And they were all shocked to see that it was the baby that was at higher risk that had survived.
Oh my gosh.
So I look at my daughter, and we kind of figured she was the one pumping all that extra fluid. She was the one that her heart was being overworked. And they were worried she would have these heart problems or brain damage now from losing her sister. And being like, what? How could, is that really going to happen now to my baby after everything else?
Right.
But they were just shocked that she was the one that, that it was the other baby that had passed away. And so here I am, February of that year, and I am buying another cemetery plot, which you find out not cheap, even for a baby.
Yeah.
I wanted her buried near her dad, so it was a full-size plot, and $3,000.
Oh my goodness.
So trying to figure out that part after already doing my husband's funeral, and I'm going in and I'm designing headstones now for both of them at the same time, because my husband's was before winter, I hadn't done it yet. And so I'm designing both of them and trying to get that ready and get it all approved. And then from March, well, baby decides to come early anyway. So I guess blessing and disadvantage there, right?
Right.
So at 26 weeks is when I lost named her Mikkel. She passed away, and at 34 weeks they're born. And they kind of said, okay, she's coming early. We're gonna put you in the room that's right by the NICU. As soon as she's born, she's passed through a window, and they take her.
Jeez.
So, but Mikkel, they cleaned up in the room and gave her back to me. So I got to have that time, you know, this perfect little baby, you know, not full grown, but everything developed, her little fingers, her little toes,
Gosh.
and just getting to see her. And, you know, they're worried, you know, we don't know how other baby's gonna do yet. So a couple days later, no brain damage, no heart issues, totally healthy. She was in the hospital for about 10 days because she was preemie. She ended up on oxygen, and that was the only real issue they came across. Was 2 days in, she was having some issues breathing. She did have to have IVs occasionally, and you know.
Yeah.
But other than that, so again, miracle, like nothing was wrong with her. And so here I am in the hospital, this baby's getting all the medical attention, and I've got to plan a graveside for Mikkel.
Oh man.
And I remember that week being really rainy. And I said, you know what, I don't know how long Everly's gonna be in the hospital, so I just need to do this for Mikkel. I need to get it planned. And so I picked a Saturday and got that all set up. Asked a neighbor to sing a song for it, and my brother actually, when I went in, sidetrack, no, baby caskets are not nice. Like,
No.
it looks like a cooler.
Yeah.
And I thought, I cannot bury my baby in this. You know, this was before she was born. And my brother built a little casket for her.
Wow.
So it still went inside the other one because that worked as the vault.
Yeah.
But he built this little casket for her. And I had somebody that donated little tiny preemie baby clothes for her to be buried in. And so that week rolls around, and you know, don't know what's going to happen with my other baby while she's in the hospital. It's just a day-to-day thing. Well, that Friday, they decided to release her the day before the graveside. So I got to bring her home, and she got to be there for the graveside service. And it was the only day that week the sun shined. And I remember being like, you know, thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for that blessing, because my husband's was a gray day. And I remember being like, this is so fitting. It should be gray. That's how I feel. And then when the house went on, I don't want to do gray day again.
Yeah, right.
And I got a sunny day.
Holy cow.
And so yeah, my daughter, she was on oxygen for maybe a month. But other than that, she's never had any issues. And I look back and I say, okay, God, you knew what you were doing.
Right.
all the way around. Every time I worried, every time.
Who are we to question him? And we still do, right? Even
Yeah.
when things turn out the way we didn't expect, we still question when other things come up. Right. And I don't know if that's part of our growth, part of our learning and building our faith.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, what you went through, and then what your families went through in such a short period of time, that puts a lot of people over the edge.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people over the edge. I just can't imagine the strength that it took. And you even said, you know, you had the faith and the belief. However, when you get like a shot and another shot and another shot and another shot, I could see how that could dwindle so quickly, right? So we're just going, okay, enough.
You're right.
Enough. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, gosh.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was not a fun time.
No.
Those things are not things I would wish on anyone, but that's why I share it now.
Yeah.
It's because I want others to know that it gets better. And there is help along the way, even though we're not always seeing it, it's there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you know, I was talking about this in our show, our earlier show. Society has a way of having us looking at life through a straw all the time, right? Until you wake up one day and decide to remove that straw, and you start seeing everything around you, there are blessings every single day.
Oh, yeah.
Every single day. We're not seeing it. And it's because of we're so caught up with bills and life and
Right.
who shot JR and I mean all kinds
All
of
the little
stuff,
things
right?
and the political things.
Yeah, yeah, and we don't believe in watching the news. Okay, we don't want to hear the negative and the evil and the garbage
That's
that's out
mostly
there.
what it is too.
Right? It is, and I've told other people this. It's like I want to live in my happy little space because I know there's bad out there, but I also know there's just as much good.
Yeah.
There really, really is. I don't want to get pulled into that because if I'm getting pulled into that, my energy's feeding that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feed it. I don't want to feed the monster.
Right.
Right? I would rather go, God, please watch over us. Please help us. I know you know when you're going to step in. I don't know when. I hope it's soon.
Right.
Because there's a lot of garbage going on out there and there's a lot of innocent people getting hurt. However, it's out of my hands. I can't control it. Just like when we have loved ones battling addiction, there's nothing we can do.
Yep.
We can't make the choices for them. My wife don't like this word fix. It was brought up in our show earlier. We can't fix them, right? Because they're not broken.
Right.
They're lost. They're not broken.
Yeah.
To kind of rewind things back a little bit. Do you know if your husband was battling with some type of trauma or things that possibly happened to him? Because I have found with the 200 plus people I've interviewed from all over, like the UK and Canada and all around the United States, there was something that pushed them to that. And it falls around the 11, 12, and 13, 14, right around the puberty time is when the addiction really starts. It's when they first explore it and then it grabs it, right? Do you know if your husband ever dealt with something that you wasn't quite sure on and you found out afterwards to help you understand a little more?
Not specifically towards trauma or anything. I mean, I probably wouldn't be super surprised. I think he grew up in a good home. And so it wasn't something there. His dad was paralyzed when he was a young kid. I know that was really hard on him. So I don't know if maybe dealing with some of those things was hard for him. And I know some people are more prone to, once you try it, the way that your body's, made or genetically more prone to react to those. And I don't know if he was maybe just one of those that it just caught him really fast.
Just had the addiction personality. Yeah.
Which I don't know, that's why, it kills me to watch other people when I'm like, I know what that can do to you, don't do it.
Right. However, we don't, right? And we just don't want to feel the pain anymore. I mean, all the pain you went through, right? And that could have pushed you over the edge, right? You could have chose a different path.
Oh, yeah.
And luckily you didn't, because your faith was strong enough and you believed strong enough. However, I know people that was also that way too, and it eventually grabbed him and pulled him back. Because and what's crazy is, even though the first time that we either drink or snort a line or shoot up or whatever, the feeling's the most amazing feeling ever. We never get that same feeling back. We're always searching for it.
Right.
And that's where it grabs us, right? Because now it has us. It has us. I like to use eagle talons because I love eagles and owls. I just love them. And when they seek their talons in them, there's no getting them out.
Yeah.
They're in there deep.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a golden eagle pick up a coyote and take off flying, right? And those coyotes they're not light, right? And it just flies away like it's nothing. And those talons are buried so deep in them. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
When the addiction grabs them. So
yeah, I remember talking to a lady that I worked with, and she was saying I think maybe she had tried it once or something, but she's like, I can't. She's like, I know I would be addicted. I
Yeah,
know it. She's like, so I cannot go near that stuff. And I couldn't, but she knew that and
Yeah.
was willing to set that limit. Great.
but that is really good, because even for me, I mean, I did my first line of cocaine back when I was 17, I left home, graduated from school, started working construction, went to Denver, then went to Phoenix, and actually it was Denver was the first place, and I was like in heaven. However, it didn't grab me. It was just something that party every once in a while. And then when we moved to Phoenix, I mean, we had a house with a swimming pool. It was kegs and parties every weekend because we worked hard during the week. And it wasn't until I came back here and started working at the manufacturing plant that I did, and having all the responsibility and stress and everything. And when I had it again, I mean, it was like, oh, I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about Monday. Oh my gosh, this is great, right? And then before I knew it, it was every Friday and Saturday for 8 years. 8 years. And talking about to be able to manipulate and hide, my wife, who I have now, the 3 years we dated, she had no clue. She knew I was drinking.
Yeah.
She never could understand how come I could drink so much and not get drunk, because you play the level game all day, right? Or all night. I hid it from her that well. She had no clue. And I worked my butt off. My bills were still paid. I didn't steal. I didn't nothing. I worked 15, 16 hours a day until Friday. I worked my 8 hours on the phone, However, before I realized it, I was 198 pounds. I always took care of myself, always was into lifting and bodybuilding and keeping in shape and things like that. And now here I am, I look down and I can't see my toes because my belly's so big. I got a double chin. I look at my wedding pictures and I'm like, man, that tux looks good, but it would look a lot better if I wasn't so heavy, right?
It's hard to picture
It's
you
hard.
like that.
However, I was though, right? And I remember even looking in the mirror quite a few times on weekends where I'd run into the bathroom to do some, and I'd look in the mirror and I'm like, God, you got to help me, because I know if I continue down this road, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
Well, he has a sense of humor. I lost my job because of it, right? I'm like, no, that's not what I mean.
He was helping you out.
He was helping me out, right? However, just like what you said with your story and all the stuff that happened to you, you saw the blessings in it, right? It wasn't overnight, of course,
Right.
but you saw the blessings. And I am a firm believer that it was a blessing for me, because it's put me, if you would have asked me even 5 years ago if I'd be doing what I'm doing right now in the recovery community, I'd like, what? No way. You got your head up, where, However, I go back and look. I got out of the church, got out of praying, all that back when I was 13. I always believed. However, when I lost my job, it took me some time because I was embarrassed to hit my knees, pray to someone I can't see. However, I knew it was there because I had my signs and my spiritual moments when I was crippled as a kid.
Yeah.
It brought me back to Him. That's my higher power, is God. It opened me up to where I feel I'm very, very close to my Holy Spirit and my angels. I do my very best to hear and listen to what's being said, because I know it's them. It's directed me. It's not me.
Right.
It's them.
We'd like to take credit
leading
for some
me,
of
right?
those ideas.
Right. But yeah, I cannot take the credit. And you even mentioned once or twice during the show, you go back and you see why you're at where you're at today, right? And why these things had to happen to be where you're at right now. And my good buddy Nicholas, and I've said this on many, many shows, if you go back and you connect the dots backwards, you had to go through everything you had to go through to put you right where you're at, as far as spiritually, mentally, physically, the whole gamut is basically how I see it, right? Because I look at life so much differently now.
Yeah.
I just hit 60 in July, and it's taken me a heck of a long time to finally understand it. You've got to experience it at a much younger age, and you're getting to see, and I love that, right? Sometimes I've gone back and said, I wish I could have gone through something a little bit earlier in my younger age. However, that was not my journey.
Yeah.
This has been my journey. So I've gotten myself now to a point where it's like, okay, I may question it, but I understand, right? This was the journey I was supposed to take. Where it's going to go, I don't know.
Yeah.
However, the faith that I have and the belief that I have now is far greater than where it was even when I left. And it's all because of what's happened in my life.
Right.
And the people that have come into my life. And it's individuals like yourself, Alyssa, and so many, see, I'm getting emotional talking about, so many of our other guests that have helped my journey. I mean, seriously, they have helped my journey so much, and they have made me a better man, a better friend, hopefully a better husband, because I've made a lot of mistakes as a husband, and it's just made life so much more bearable. Even though there's all this nastiness going on out there, it's like somebody mentioned this to me on a show, and they use it, or maybe it was a book. I don't even remember. And I was telling the ladies this morning, I said, how are you guys? And they're like, oh, we're good. Now, good is heart level. Well is above heart level. And I says, oh, wait a minute. Let me rephrase this. I said, I heard this and I want to start using it. How's your heart today? And they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so the one sister looked at us, so how's your heart today, right? And she's like, it's full of gratitude. And then they turn around and ask me, so how's your heart, Al? And I'm like, you know what? I woke up this morning so grateful. I don't know why. Just today, I woke up and I'm just like, I'm just so grateful for today. Nothing special has happened. I'm just grateful for today.
Good way to look at it, though.
Right? Yeah. And for you to go through all that you've gone through, and it's been what, 7 years?
Yep.
You said 7 years now?
Yeah.
To look at life the way that you look at life, man, I tip my hat off to you. I mean, seriously.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a very, very strong woman. Very strong. And you have a lot to offer. And your daughter's probably going to grow up to be somebody very amazing and special, because that's what I saw when I met her.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I feel like she already is pretty
Right?
special.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's got a bright personality.
Oh
and
my gosh, yes.
I remember somebody telling me after she was born, and just this happy little child, you know, they're like, she wasn't sent just for you. She was sent to bless so many people around
right?
her.
So we'll wait till they get a little older, but I'd like to see if she'd be interested in my grandson, because they're about the same age. They're the same age, and he's a doll.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's a doll. If I was single, I'd have him with me every day, because it would draw the women in.
Yeah.
Just him, right? Because he is a doll. I mean, he's got a great personality as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do you see your life kind of going here in the next few years? I mean, we talked about earlier not looking too far ahead. However, me turning 60 here back in July, I went on a hike, and something my dad used to use, I contemplated my navel and was thinking, where's my life going for the next 10 years, right? Because I'm going to be 70 in 10 years. And it's like, I got so much that I want to do and accomplish, and so much I want to give.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself? Let's say even in the next year or two.
Yeah. It's a good question. Honestly, sometimes I've always been one of those people that looking ahead, you know, even in high school, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. Don't ask me that.
Right.
But right now I feel really good where I'm at. Because I've got my daughter, I'm working at a school, which crazy enough, recess, you get to help more people than you would think. my first year there, I had kids opening up to me that had lost parents.
Mm.
And they knew, I tell them, my husband died, and they felt like I was someone they could talk to. And I'm
Absolutely.
like, wow, I've been placed somewhere that I'm still helping people that are struggling with these things. So right now, I feel really good about staying in the school systems and continuing forward, helping people how I can in that way. I feel like the position I'm in right now has made it, being single and so on right now, I have a really good relationship with my nieces and nephews. I get to be closer and help them with certain things, and I feel really good about that. And even though I'm like, I don't necessarily have a plan to get remarried, or I don't know if that's in my future. It could be, it might not be.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
You gave me a reason, which I think is a great reason too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel okay where I'm at.
Okay.
And I'm good with that right now.
Good.
I'm happy to help those that I can right now. I love raising my daughter and spending time with her. And I have this fear she's going to grow up too fast, and that I better pay attention.
That they do. Yeah. Yeah, they grow up real quick. I mean, my oldest daughter's 33, coming up on 34 in November. My youngest is 31. And I'm like, I tell my youngest daughter, she used to act like a cat. She could jump from here to there like a cat. And I'm like, I told her, I don't know, 6-7 months ago, I went up and put my arm around her. I'm like, Dad misses when you used to act like a cat. Because it seems like just yesterday. Right? And now here she is, this spuncious fashionista girl. I loves her freaking car. She's a car nut. I mean, she's always making these videos. She's got a new boyfriend who I'm very happy for. He's an awesome guy and treating her really, really well. And she's really happy. But yeah, they grow up quick.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Be where I am, I guess. And
well, that's good enough.
Like you, and
well, thank you. Yeah.
Helping, being in a position I get to be close with my family right now, and have a pretty good relationship with my siblings, and we stay close and in touch.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really good. So to wrap this thing up, because I bet you we've gone well over an hour.
Yeah,
we're at an hour. Yeah. So see, an hour. She was like at the beginning. It's okay if it doesn't go an hour. And it's like, yeah, it's okay. However, I bet we will, because it's easy to go an hour. It really is.
Yeah.
It's like, you like rodeos. It's like 8 seconds on a bull. It probably seems like a lifetime, but really it's not. I like to ask these questions at the end of the show, and you can answer both or one. It doesn't matter. What did you want our listeners to gain from this show, and or what would be your main message for our listeners?
Well, kind of clumping those together maybe a little bit.
Okay.
I really want people to know that when you're struggling through the hard times, whether it's addiction or loss of loved ones, or even something else, everyday stuff, that there's hope and there's help. There's resources and places to turn, and look for the little good things to keep you going and uplifting. And the hard time's gonna pass, and it's gonna get better.
Did you guys hear what she said? She said the little good things, because it doesn't have to be big. I mean, seriously, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes the little things actually end up being the biggest blessings.
I agree.
Well put. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I did a talk at the Red Barn Academy a little over a month ago. And it's something that I read somewhere. And it said, my greatest moments didn't come from my greatest moments. My greatest moments came from my tragedies and my failures. And I believe you have a lot of great moments because of what you've gone through.
It builds us.
It does. Yeah. Yeah, it makes us into individuals that we can be proud of. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm proud of who I am today compared to who I used to be. And I thought I was awesome before. I wasn't even close. I wasn't even 1%, not even 0.5%, right? And it took my tragedy of losing my job and going through what I went through, and even going through my wife's addiction, to to bring me who I am today. And you've done exactly that as well. Yeah, I'm very honored and blessed to know you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
thanks for being a part of my life. See, I get teary-eyed even doing that. My emotions, I don't know. My wife says I've become a wussy ever since I've had grandkids. I'm gonna blame it on the grandkids. Yeah, we'll do that.
That works.
So, is there anything else, Alyssa, that you'd like to share before we sign off?
I think that pretty well covers it. Just,
Okay.
keep going. Don't give up. Keep your faith.
I love it. I love it. And whatever your faith is, right?
Yes.
I mean, seriously, whatever your faith is, if it's working for you, that's all that matters. And I'm a true, firm believer of that. So, guys, thank you to all of you for your support, all our guests, all our listeners, all our sponsors, guys. As I say at the end of every show, man, thank you. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for you guys. You guys are the ones that's making it continue to grow. I mean, 2.5 years, 211 or 12 episodes. It's because of you guys. So thank you so much. And I'm going to continue to say this till this event comes up. Mark your calendars for Saturday, October 7th, from 1 to 6 at the Miller Free Enterprise in Sandy, our Healing Utah Success Summit. You want to be inspired? Come to this event because you will definitely be inspired. We've got some amazing speakers, and I'm not saying that because I'm one of them. I'm saying it because really the speakers that we have, Mallory Roosh, my good friend Mallory Roosh, who I've adopted as another daughter from St. George. She's going to be talking about how she was inspired to recover, a little bit about her story. My good buddy Curtis Marsh, he's going to be talking about how to rise above the chaos, which there's a ton of chaos in our world right now. My good friend Brad Newfield, the owner of Resilience Talk Network, he's got some great key points. He's going to be talking about how to be resilient. I'll be talking about how to pull yourself out of the darkness and being on both sides of addiction. And our MC at our October event, you guys watched him on TV or at the Utah Jazz games for years. My good buddy, John Apsey, the former Jazz Bear, who used to pull all the crazy stunts you've ever seen a mascot do. He will be emceeing the event. The guy's going to be phenomenal. We've got a lot of great prizes that we're going to be giving out for the drawing. And it's just going to be a great event. So guys, go to Ruesch, RUESCH, recovery.com. Get your tickets. They're only $34, very inexpensive. We've got Clean Slate Utah out there, Red Barn Academy, the Other Side Academy, White Tree Medical is going to be out there. USARA is going to be out there. I think Prime V is coming out. We've got some good friends who do Natty Addy. You guys have heard me talk about Natty Addy. They're going to be out there. It's going to be an awesome, awesome day full of inspiration. Bring your tissues because I guarantee you will cry. I guarantee it because I will have my tissues because I guarantee I'll probably cry, even telling my story. So anyway, again, thank you guys. And remember this, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out. Now I get to sneak up to work. Stop record. You guys don't see this.